got it.
All right. And then, yeah. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the second episode of Kicking It in Higher Ed. I am your host, David Holsinger, and today we are joined by the lovely Kim Walsh. Kim, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Got the day started with the second monster. So yeah, we're we're rolling through it. Are you a coffee slash caffeinated person?
I am drinking my coffee right now. Yes.
Yes. Yes. All right, Kim, give us a little introduction, just who you are, kind of where you studied for school and whatnot, and then what you do now.
Sure. Well, my name is Kim Walsh, and I got both my undergraduate and graduate degree at University of Northern Iowa. Um, my undergraduate, I was a psychology major, English and coaching minor. I was an education major up until my senior year, and then decided I really didn't want to teach. And then it was kind of senior year. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I was looking into both school psychology and then higher ed programs, student affairs, and kind of landed on the student affairs program and then stayed at UNI to get my master's in higher ed.
Nice. So
And then
how,
I guess you asked currently. Currently, I'm at Loras College, and I have two titles. I'm the assistant vice president for student development, and I'm also the associate dean of students.
yeah, I saw that on your LinkedIn. I was actually wondering about that, like how the two titles things work, but we'll get in that in a bit. What
Sure.
kind of stood out for like student affairs, I guess, when you were making that decision in college between teaching psychology then?
Um, you mean how did I choose student affairs?
Yeah, like what was your why? Like why'd you kind of get into that, the whole master's program and everything?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because my why for student affairs is not what I ended up doing in student affairs.
Mm,
I went into student affairs for two reasons. I was thinking because I at senior year had no idea what I wanted to do. So I spent some time in the career center trying to figure out what are some paths that I could take when I decided not to do education. And as I was in the career, I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool that you get to help people and kind of figure out what they want to do. So one of my thoughts for student affairs was career services.
mm,
And then the other piece that since I played tennis at UNI,
yeah.
and I was really engaged with, I taught tennis. I thought I wanted to be a coach.
Mm,
I was also kind of thinking wellness or something along the area of coaching or some of those kinds of things for student affairs. Interestingly, I didn't pursue either one of those.
yeah.
And kind of went a totally different track in student affairs. But once I kind of started on that path, I never looked back, and I'm really kind of happy with where I landed.
Nice. That's kind of like the boat I'm in right now,
Uh-huh.
almost. I feel like where I'm just like not quite sure where I want to go in student affairs, but
Yeah.
right now it's either coaching is one of the big things or just
Hmm.
working with student athletes in general. So
Hmm.
hopefully academic advising, but we'll see as we get going.
Yeah. Well, and one of the great things about student affairs is there's so many tracks you can take within it, and there's so many different options. So yeah, it really is a great career. Yep.
Hmm. And that's like, yeah, part of the whole reason I really did want to start
Yep.
this too is because I still don't know and did not
Hmm.
know like any of the careers in student affairs really, and just like how I guess broad it is. Because it's definitely
Yeah.
not one of those fields where like, you're a little boy or girl and you're like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a firefighter, oh, I want to work with college students. That's just not something that really comes up. So,
No, you don't even know it exists until you're in college.
uh,
You don't even realize that it's out there as a career until you are in college and receive some of those services and whatnot. So yeah.
so what was your first career then, or job, I guess, in student affairs?
So in graduate school, I worked in the continuing ed office when I was in graduate school. The other thing I did in graduate school, you have to do all those internships and
Yeah.
whatnot. I did a lot of internships with leadership studies when I was at UNI and really loved it.
Hmm.
Um, so, and then I did do internship in career services at UNI, and I did not like that as an internship.
What kind of
Um,
what turned you off from the career services?
it was just too business focused, with it wasn't as people orientated and helping students as much as it was, I don't know, just it seemed more business focused than it did like the student helping and student development
For
type
sure.
piece. And it just didn't feel like a good fit for me.
Hmm.
Um, when I was finishing my master's at UNI, and it just happened because I'm from Dubuque and I knew people at Loras. Loras reached out to me and they had just a part-time job advising our college activities board. And so all I was doing was I was done with my coursework and
Hmm.
I just had to do my research paper and defend.
Yeah.
So I moved back to Dubuque and did that part-time. It was like 20 hours a week as I finished up my master's. Um, and that's kind of how I would say the first real job I had in student affairs that was like, this is a really good fit for me. Because I got to put the leadership stuff into work with working with students, the hands-on kind of being able to develop students. And I loved it.
Hmm.
Um, and so that was like it was the first career in student affairs that I was like, yeah, I'm on the right track. This is kind of what I want to be doing.
Nice. And then so started at Loras and still
Yep.
at Loras now. So what's your like kind of why behind Loras? Why are you staying there
Yep.
so long? What is it about Loras that kind of sets it apart for you?
I think when I first started at Loras, I never in 3 million years planned to be here as long as I've been here. I really thought it would be a year, 2, 3 years at most, and I'd kind of move on. But I think a lot of things just happened that kind of where I stayed and then stayed and stayed and some of those kinds of things. So
Mhm.
after the part-time position with CAB, a residence life position
Yeah.
opened. And so it moved into a full-time position where I was working in residence life, but I got to continue the student life stuff with advising CAB, working with orientation and some of those other kinds of things.
Hmm.
And I did that for 2 years. Um, I liked parts of the residence life,
Hmm.
but I really liked the student life piece. Um, and so I was to that point where I was looking for jobs because I didn't want to stay in student life and I'm sorry, residence life. I wanted to kind of move to the student life types of positions. And so I was job searching. Well, then Loris offered me a full-time job within student life, where I got to expand kind of what I was doing. So I ended up staying at Loris and kind of moving away from residence life and into student life. And I think one of the things that there's lots of things that probably kept me at Loris, is one, because we're small, I
Hmm.
get to wear a lot of hats and do a lot of things,
Hmm.
which I find really appealing. Now, some people don't like that, but I love that my year to year, my job has never been the same. And that I've had a lot of ownership as to what I get to do and the programs that I develop and all those kinds of things. And that was really, really appealing to me. Um, I love, while I loved UNI and I loved every minute I was at I think working at a small college, I see the opportunities that students get
Hmm.
and and the relationships and the networking opportunities. And that has really appealed to me. The community atmosphere, all those kinds of things.
Hmm.
So I think, and just like, I love the people, I love the students at Loras. So all those kinds of things kind of just 1 year has kind of kept me for those. And I've had career advancement opportunities at Loras and all those kinds of things. So that's kind of what's kept me here for that long.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually really
Yep.
interesting to hear. The other
Mhm.
day in class, actually, we were talking about just like job creep, basically. So, like, I mean, in higher education, a lot of times underfunded, don't have the staff you need. So, you get
Yep.
people wearing a lot of hats, kind of like you're
Hmm.
saying. But a lot of
Hmm.
times people don't necessarily like that because that
Yep.
turns it from a 40-hour week job to maybe a 60, 70-hour a week job. But
Yep.
getting to do a lot of different things, keeping it fresh, that's definitely something that I think a lot of people could relate to and wanting
Hmm.
in a position.
Yep.
And then, so your most recent role you're in now, Did you
Mhm.
kind of start that role in the height of COVID?
No, yes and no. I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, all the years run together. I've been here a long time, so all
Yeah.
the years run together, and I couldn't even you. If you looked at my LinkedIn, you might even know when I moved
Yeah,
in
I
that
think that's
role.
where I was like pulling that from in my head, just because I think
More,
like 2020-ish, I saw
yeah,
maybe
it
something.
it could be.
Yeah.
I think in the years I've been here, my role has just expanded, and I've
Okay.
taken on more responsibility.
Hmm.
And I was the director of student life for a long time.
Hmm.
Um, but really I was doing a lot of associate dean types of responsibilities.
Yeah.
And so in conversations with my boss, it was just like, you're doing this role, let's just,
Hmm.
encompass that into your title.
For sure.
And then he's taken on more responsibility in the college. And so it was our president was like, you really need a defined number two
Hmm.
within your division. And so that's when, and again, I was already doing it. So
Yeah.
that's when the assistant vice president piece came into it.
Okay.
So it wasn't like just one day and then my job changed. It was kind of like as my job evolved and I started taking on more responsibility,
Mm.
we hired different people within our office and some of those kinds of things. It just kind of evolved into those kind of titles and roles.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's always nice to have then, because I was wondering if you started a new job at the height of COVID, kind of like just the amount of stress that would put like on a brand new position, and then you're like, oh, I have to deal with something the
Yeah.
world has never dealt with before. But I'm sure it
Yeah.
still caused a lot of stress. What was like, I guess, was there anything you're really proud of that Loras did at the time during COVID, or yeah, is there just anything that stands out to you that you're really proud of that you did during that time?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, COVID was so challenging for everybody. And I think there's things that all colleges did that was great and things that weren't great.
Hmm.
Again, because of Loris's size and the decisions our leadership made, we were back on campus the fall of 2020, whereas a lot of larger schools were online for a year, and even smaller schools were online for a year. But we had a lot of social distancing. Students were very isolated in their little pods of circles or their groups. So, I think what I'm proud of is, and again, always room for improvement, but
Hmm.
I, I think we did it. We tried to do a good job of continuing programming and delivering opportunities for students to get connected to Loras,
Hmm.
that were a lot of virtual options, but some not virtual. We kind of adapted to, with students on campus, what could we do to keep them safe, but form connections and all those kinds of things while they're on campus. And
Hmm.
then the events that we couldn't do that because it wouldn't be safe, we did the virtual option. So kind of that blend of engagement and all those kinds of things for students. So COVID, oh gosh, I'm so glad it's over though. It's just, I think the most challenging part of COVID is Loras is community based,
Hmm.
and COVID it just wasn't what we were as an institution.
For sure.
So we really are at our best when we are in person
Hmm.
and can develop that community with one another. So certainly COVID was challenging,
Hmm.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. For, I guess, what did COVID like really, because you guys have the big like Duhawk Day, stuff like
Mhm.
that going on at
Yep.
Loras. Do you take any part in kind of planning
Yep.
that? And
Yep.
how did COVID kind of impact Duhawk Day and everything?
Well, gosh, and again, the years are running together. I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember. I feel like it was either the first year.
Hmm.
So COVID, we had Duhawk Day, and then the next week is when we sent everybody home. So
Gotcha.
in 2020, we actually had Duhawk Day, and it was what it always was.
Yep.
And then the next week, we ended up sending students home. I'm pretty sure the next year, if I'm remembering right, in 2021, we we had Duhawk Day. It was different, but it was the first, I think, event since COVID that students felt like there was a sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was good because it kind of got students again, it felt like, even though it wasn't normal, it was the first thing that I think really felt normal for students.
Hmm.
In our office, so do but student life's role is for students.
Hmm.
So all the programming that happens on campus, like trying to educate students about what Dubuque Day is, the whole community, we do all day programming for students to for them to form connections with one another. And then we also encourage the philanthropic giving for students as well. But that all comes out of anything students comes out of our office. Alumni does the alumni.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, man, yeah,
Yeah.
glad COVID is behind us though.
Yes,
It was,
for sure.
yeah, that was a crazy
Yep.
time. And even like back to kind of what you were saying before about just like Loras being a little that smaller sense of
Mm-hmm.
community, just easier to engage with students and everything. At UNI, it's like already hard with, a much larger student body. And
Yep.
then it's like, oh, let's throw you all behind a computer screen and see if
Yep.
we can fit that all in. So
Yep.
it was, oh man, yeah, wild
Yeah.
time. And then
Yep.
kind of backpedaling though. So you said you never really jumped on like your original why you got into student affairs when you first
Mm-hmm.
started, has your why changed throughout your years as a student affairs professional? And like, what is your why now?
Oh, it's a very good question. I don't I'm thinking. I don't think my why has changed. I got into student affairs because I like to work with people. I didn't want to stand in front of a classroom and do that, but I feel like it still is education, but it's much more well, there's a lot of things that we do educating in masses, but it's not teaching per se.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, and I was always like my favorite classes when I was at UNI were the ones that focused on development, student development and some of those kinds of things. And that still is probably what I enjoy most, is just seeing students grow from their first year to their senior year and providing opportunities of those challenge and support and all those kinds of things. And I think that is still my why.
Yeah.
I think my approach has changed a lot since when I started to, I, I think I've certainly developed and grown as well in student affairs. I think, when I first started, I was probably much more, I don't know, for lack of a better word, dualistic in my approach with students.
Okay.
Whereas I think I've gotten much better at seeing all the different varieties of ways to approach students and meeting students, each student where they're at, because they're all at different places.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think my why has changed. My favorite part of my job has always been students.
Yeah.
My best days have always been my work with students, and some of my worst days are the more challenging conversations that you have with
Yeah,
students. But it's always been kind of what has given me passion for what I do.
for sure. And then
Mm.
I mean, mentioning the continued working with students, dance marathon. I know
Yeah,
that's a big part of your life. I've been
yeah.
involved with dance marathon with you and the family in the past as
Hmm.
well. Do you mind giving us a little insight on your role in dance marathon and your kind of why behind that too?
Sure. And again, it's been maybe 20 years. I don't 18 years. I don't. It's been a long time. Anyway, when we started dance marathon, it was actually a part of a leadership program, and we were looking at. We had several different tiers, so to speak, of the leadership program. And I wanted to teach students the importance of philanthropy and service. And so was wanted a hands-on way to do that. And so, researched all different kinds of possibilities. We looked at St. Jude's program and the dance marathon program and all kinds of things. But in doing that, I had involved students, and dance marathon seemed to be the biggest fit, and seemed to be what excited students the most. So we went that route. So it started as a part of a leadership program, but within probably 2 years, it had outgrown the leadership program. It, kind of went from this thing connected to this leadership thing to this phenomenon that happened on our campus. And we had such strong student involvement and so many students involved that weren't in the leadership program that ended up separating the two. So it started with this leadership program. And again, like I said, so many students got passionate about it right off the bat, and just continued to grow quickly and fast on our campus. And then, and I know you know this, David, but after again, a couple of years of advising the program, my niece got sick and was diagnosed with cancer. So it became much more personal for me than when it had started, having, that direct, or seeing the direct impact on my niece of the Children's Hospital and Dance Marathon that it had on my niece and her family. So it became much more personal and passionate with that. So, Dance Marathon at Loras was ginormous, and we were #1 per capita in the nation for years and years. And it was, I think, again, I don't remember how many years, but it was before COVID. As my role began to expand on campus and part of moving into the associate dean and those positions, I did temporarily give up advising it and had staff members in student life advise the program. And then COVID came, which was extraordinarily hard on Dance Marathon, because for Loras, it's so much about our families in the Dubuque area. And we couldn't, with sick kids, with COVID, that connection really suffered. And just virtual Dance Marathon it's been hard nationwide. But again, on our campus where it was so community and one-on-one and all that, it really hurt. So we're in the process of rebuilding right now. It kind of almost ceased to exist. So we're kind of in the second year of trying to bring it back, and I'm back advising it and working with the students and some of those kinds of things. So
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID again, just striking, but it's awesome to hear that rebuilding. And I know that's something kind of you and I has been doing too. But I remember, oh man, that must have been 10 years ago, close to 10 years ago now. I remember going to Loras like every other year and stuff. And it was a huge group then, and they had so many fun activities and stuff, just running around upstairs. And that was some of the best memories as a kid with me and Noah, one of my best childhood friends. So I really enjoyed that, and I definitely cherish those. So we're at a pretty good spot right now, Kim. Do you have any last words of wisdom, advice for people like in my shoes, just getting into student affairs, or maybe professionals that are looking to make a career change?
I think probably my biggest advice would be just knowing myself and where I started with student affairs and where I ended. Is one of the things I really appreciate about UNI's program. And maybe it's changed because again, it was a long time ago, but the focus on internships and practicums and some of those kinds of things. Because again, what I thought I wanted to do in student affairs is not what I'm currently doing, but I do feel like I found my place in student affairs that I can do the most good and fulfills me the most. So, take advantage of trying different things and exploring different areas of the field. Because there really are a lot of opportunities, and find the one that makes you the happiest, because I do believe when you're fulfilled, it's easier to kind of have that extend to others as well.
For sure.
So I think that would be part of my biggest advice is, try different things on and see what works.
For sure. Kim, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Awesome. You have a great rest of your week.
You too.
Yeah.
And stay warm.